Hello fellow book readers, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about all of the books that I've read thus far. It is the mid-year freakout tag. I didn't know that this existed. Honestly, I didn't even really know anything about the booktube community on YouTube. I just started watching videos that people posted. I think it was more last fall, but before then I left my previous job to go work at a different job, which was a bookstore, and then for various reasons I ended up leaving and going to a different job. But you know, going and working around books, it actually kind of reinvigorated this spark of reading interest for me that as a kid I had. Like, I was a big reader. I would read during recess. I got bullied for it. You know, kid stuff. By the way, during this video, if you do hear my AC kick on, it is like that. I tried to turn it up a little, but I don't want to start sweating because it is going to be, I think, 102 today. This whole past week has been in the hundreds, so it is very much summertime, but I'm not having it in the house. Also, you might hear bird song. There's a lot of birds that live outside, just like in the general courtyard area. And then also I have a little, I think it's vintage, I don't know. I don't know exactly what year it came out, but it's like a Pikachu clock. It's quite cute, but if you hear that in the background, just know that that's just like a little clock that I have. But yeah, this little stack behind me is all the books that I've read so far this year. Some of them I did start in like November, December of last year, but I'm just gonna count them anyways. I am one of those people that also just has a bunch of different hobbies, and I work, and so I just like have all this other stuff going on usually, so I don't read a ton, but I do get very, very invested in whatever I'm reading usually, or at least I try to. Once I find a fictional world to delve into, I will want to be a part of that world forever. I want it to be mapped out in my little head, especially when it comes to stories. I mean, I think every single thing is important, even if I'm trying to just recap to somebody and then I get lost. And oh, and the other thing too is, if you are hunkering down to watch this video, just because I have absolutely no idea how long it's going to be, just because I did say that I do in fact ramble, and I think every detail is important. And I am just in love with all of these books and the characters, so I have a lot to say. I'm going to try and not do spoilers, even though all of these books I think are generally pretty popular. I say that as I'm sitting next to Harry Potter. It's like generally popular. You know, Cassandra Clare, just generally popular. I have my little book journal here that I started December of last year to just kind of document how many pages I read, what books I read, my thoughts on them. So some of my notes are like general summaries, some of them are a lot of spoilers or comparisons to the film adaptations. And we're gonna jump into talking about this lovely stack of books right here. So let's get started. I just wanted to show you also, this is my December book spread. I'm not including the two kind of short stories that I read from Leigh Bardugo. So we have Vespertine here. I think it came out in 2021, I'm not super sure. But this is about, I will definitely pronounce this incorrectly, or maybe not, Artemisia. Well, actually I also want to show you, there's all these crows around her, but this one in particular is kind of like, I don't know if you would describe it as a familiar, but his name is Trouble. She nursed him back to health, and it's just a very kind of sweet relationship that they have. He literally alerts her to trouble, and he's also a little bit of trouble. He's very interesting. I liked the addition of him in this book. So there's a couple main characters, but we're going to just kind of stick to the basics with it. And Artemisia herself, I actually identified with the character a little bit. She's a very misunderstood character. She's a very misunderstood heroine. She has a lot of social issues. Her social interactions are very limited, and the people around her misunderstand her in a lot of ways, and they actually treat her like they're walking on eggshells. You know, they're actually a little bit scared of her. They think that she's not, you know, this caring, kind person that she actually is, because they don't take the time to get to know her. All they look at are her scars and her kind of, you know, creepy demeanor. But she's not even creepy. Like, it's just their interpretation of her that they put onto her when, you know, she barely speaks a word. She actually does get possessed by the Revenant, and instead of it killing her, she actually is able to kind of form this weird symbiotic relationship with him, and you learn a little more about him, and you start to learn a little bit more about her, and he's actually like a voice inside of her head. So I think it's really cool that when you're reading this, you're not just reading her point of view, you're reading his point of view, because he is speaking to her in this italicized font, and he is actually quite the comedian. I liked the comedic relief of him. I liked the kind of bickering relationship that they had, and I like that through her basically having this friend who really shouldn't be a friend, she is able to make real life friends and become the heroine of this story. Some things to note in this has a lot of like self-discovery, self-love, kind of learning those things, and then also it is scary and it is spooky. This book I started in November, December. It was definitely perfect for that time period where it was cold, and just it just really enhanced the vibe of having like cold gray winter days. And then in the book, her describing these crypts and these like ghostly figures, and the descriptions of their faces are just very intense, and it's just, oh, it's so creepy. Like, it makes your skin crawl a little bit. So in the back of the book, which is actually very cool, there's a hierarchy of the spirits. So it's just able to kind of help you understand, you know, when they say shade or wisp, they're referring to first order. It actually tells you, you know, kind of like where these spirits come from. This book is so cool. Like I said, I go like this in my thought patterns when I try and reminisce on this book. What else did I say about it? It's very action-packed, it's suspenseful, there's a lot of friendship and love and duty and loyalty, and there's magic, good and bad. I love anything that has magic in it. And it's, you know, it's about also sacrifice and strength, and finding strength even when you don't really have any left. This is definitely one of my recommendations, especially if you are in the winter fall time. And her writing is absolutely beautiful. I love the way she describes things. I'm just gonna read this like little excerpt from it. It doesn't have any spoilers, I promise. It's just the way she describes this is very, I think it's very indicative of how beautiful of a writer she is. Now that Leander walked on alone, I noticed something different about his appearance. Darkness billowed around him like a cape fashioned from living smoke. As it moved, it left a smoldering trace on whatever it touched. The path behind him, the overhanging branches, as though they had been licked by flame. My skin crawled at its wrongness. And then I wanted to also give you a little excerpt from a page that I found where the Revenant is just being funny. This is after she was just trying to find like shelter too, so. Merely out of curiosity, when choosing a hiding place, do you always select the most unpleasant option available to you? And then she said, Revenant, you're dead. So yeah, that is Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I highly, 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 highly recommend this one. And the next book I'm going to be talking about is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. There's this paperback copy that I have here. And on the back you can actually see the eye, which if you read this, you will understand what that means. With Vespertine as well, it's the same artist who's done the covers for these, and I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. So I picked this up after Vespertine, just kind of like on a whim. I did have Enchantment of Ravens at the time, but I just was like, okay, this sounds cool. So this book is about Elizabeth, and she was raised in a great library. I think there's about 5 great libraries, if I remember correctly. My notes don't really help from my journal, but she was raised in a great library, and then there is a murder that happens, and she has to basically run away, and she kind of goes from living this very kind of simple, very sheltered life within this library to realizing, you know, how truly dangerous the grimoires can be, but also more so how truly dangerous the people can be, you know. And there's a lot of betrayal, and there's also a lot of loyalty and friendship and, you know, love, and it's beautifully written. Like I've said before, I absolutely adore her writing. I think it's so beautiful. I think it's very unique in the way she writes things, and it just super catches my eye. And basically, Elizabeth stumbles upon a sorcerer named Nathaniel. So sorcerers are, in this world, actually depicted as people who could be kind of tricksters, not very trustworthy, but slowly she starts to realize that he's actually a very decent person with a huge heart, and he cares very deeply, you know, for the right and wrong of things. So they kind of join forces. It's not necessarily like hate to love. She's fearful of him. I think it's more of an apprehension of a preconceived notion that she has about him. And, you know, him with her, like, he doesn't know anything about her. He just knows that she could be dangerous because of what happened at the great library that she grew up in. But as they slowly start to figure out the truth, they start to realize that they're, you know, on the same side. He's not all bad of a person, and there's a lot, again, in this book of self-discovery. If you notice in the other one, I don't have tabs in it just because I hadn't started tabbing books yet. In this one, I mean, it's chocked full. And the way my tabbing system works is I have these little ones. Oh, they're the post-it ones. I get these from Target. So the orange is for anything funny, the purple is for important changes in plot or events that happen. The green is more about kind of character development, just understanding more of their thought process. The blue is anything that I think is like beautiful writing, descriptions, moments, anything like that. And then this pink is for love. It could be platonic love, it could be familial love, it could be romantic love, just kind of anything in regards to that. So that is my tabbing system. So I did want to read you an excerpt from it. The door had opened not on a room, but on a forest. Nathaniel stood in the middle of a mossy clearing, the ground dappled by jade-colored shafts of light that speared through the colossal pines. Butterflies as large as dinner plates clustered on the trunks, fanning their iridescent turquoise wings, and liquid notes of birdsong trilled through the air. The forest seemed to go on forever, its depths cloaked in swirling mist that occasionally parted to reveal hints of dark, distant hillsides and splashing white streams. So that is just one instance of something that I just am like, this is too beautiful. I cannot handle how beautiful it is. Also, the grimoires themselves. So these books actually have, you know, they're kind of alive. These books that she takes care of, and that's why the job is so important, and it's the great libraries themselves are so important. I'm actually going to read one of the excerpts that's about one of the grimoires and how funny they are. This one says, Elizabeth was assigned to care for a class 2 called the Decrees of Bartholomew Trout, which developed a habit of wiggling provocatively every time it saw her coming. I thought this interaction that Elizabeth has with Nathaniel is very funny. So it says, she sat up straighter. Wait a moment, I thought of something. Tempting as the prospect is, Nathaniel said, we are not attempting world domination. It sounds fun in theory, but in reality it's a logistical nightmare. All those assassinations and so forth. At her blank look, he explained. Silas used to tell me bedtime stories. So overall, this is just, it's a very action-packed, magical, beautifully written. I mean, it has a lot of romance in it, but it's also like they learn to work together as a pair. And at the end, there's actually like a little bit of a you know, a little steaminess, which is not something that I usually read, but I know romance is very popular right now. So if you're wanting a fictional magical romance, this is a great book. Literally, like, I was on the edge of my seat at all times. Margaret Rogerson is really good at writing books to make you on the edge of your seat and wanting to flip to the next chapter. So I also very much highly recommend this. All right, and the next one we have is going to be Cassandra Clare's City of Bones, book 1 in the Mortal Instruments series. So this was a reread for me. I read this when I was a teenager and I haven't touched it since. I did see the movie that they made, and all I'm gonna say, Jamie is Jace, the perfect Jace. That's my hot take. But this was just kind of like one of those ones where, again, I just kind of picked it up on a whim. I didn't have anything that I was really reading, and I didn't want to fall into reading slump. Like, I wanted to read something, I didn't know what I wanted to read. And then I was like, well, I've read this before, and I remember really liking the story and liking the world, so why don't I just pick it up randomly? I ended up reading it for like an hour and a half that night. Like, that very first night, I read like 100 pages. Like, I just immediately was thrown back into this world, and I'm not mad about it at all. I'm actually very glad, but I had to kind of, like, right now just kind of try and remember what this was even about, because the last couple were just so much Cassandra Clare, my goodness. But this is about Clary, who gets involved. Well, I guess she was always involved, but she is the child of a shadow hunter, and she one day is able to see these 3 people who she's never seen before. They're covered in all of these strange kind of tattoo markings. She doesn't know what it means, and then she sees them kill someone, so she thinks there's like a murder that's happened. She's freaking out. She tells her friend Simon, and then Simon's like, I don't see anything, I don't see anyone, I have no idea who you're talking about. The bouncer is like, you are being weird, like, just go, like, there's nothing happening. So that's kind of the first weird encounter she has at that point in time. Also, she's having some kind of like weird mother-daughter kind of rocky relationship situation, and she's like, whatever, I'm gonna hang out with Simon, like, I don't care, like, I'm leaving the house, blah, 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 blah. Jocelyn, her mother, knows that there's something going on. She just kind of gets this sense, like, you know, they're not safe. And then she actually gets attacked and stolen. And so Clary comes back to the apartment after her mom called her and realized she called her a bunch of times and wasn't able to get a hold of her. I mean, the apartment is wrecked. It looks like they were looking for something. Her mom's gone. There's no way to contact her. And then all of a sudden, this person, or one of the 3 people that she saw that night at the club, reappears and starts to kind of explain to her, like, the fact that you can see us, you shouldn't be able to. And then she gets thrust into this world that she should have always been a part of, and basically regains her sight and realizes, like, she is a shadow hunter, whatever that's supposed to mean. But right now, her biggest concern is that her mom is missing and was kidnapped, but the only people that can help her are these people with these strange tattoos and weapons, and they're basically like, they murdered someone and she doesn't know what's going on. She also has her friend Simon, who she can't really explain any of this to yet, because how would you explain this to anyone? And then of course she has Luke, who actually just kind of disappears. He's basically her stepdad, and she doesn't have any recollection of him not being in her life at any point, so you don't really like know exactly where he came from, but you actually do kind of find out he is a part of this world as well. And then I also I like this world. Like, I like the idea of them, you know, fighting this kind of otherworldly thing, but also being otherworldly themselves. So I love it. I know that I'm going to make more videos talking about these, so I am not going to get super into it right now. But if you haven't seen the movie, or you know nothing about the Mortal Instruments yet, make sure to give it a read. Cassandra Clare is very good at prolonging the romance element of these books. It gets annoying a little bit because it's just like, you're so close, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll wait another book or two. If you know, you know. I still really like them and I think they're really cool. I wish that I was a shadow hunter myself, honestly, so props to you, Cassandra Clare, for creating a book series where I literally want to live inside of the book. Alright, and the next one we have is going to be City of Ashes. So this is the second book in the Mortal Instrument series. This book is starting to cover more so Clary's kind of changing identity. She, you know, in the last book, she finds out that she is someone's daughter, you know, not Luke's daughter, which Luke is the stepdad that she's always known. But she finds out she's someone's daughter. She has kind of this weird transitional period with Simon where they're like kind of dating and she's attempting to date him, but her true feelings lie elsewhere. So she's like Simon's girlfriend, but that's just another kind of label put onto her that she doesn't really identify with. She's also a shadow hunter, which is still something that's very new for her. So a lot of it is her struggling with that, and then also struggling with these new dynamics of these relationships, because her true feelings really do lie with Jace, but Jace is also supposed to be her brother, which you find out in the last book, because he is also the son of the same father, Valentine, who is not a good guy. He is not a good person. So there is all these weird dynamics happening, and then Simon gets taken and transformed, and it is very scary. And so now they're also having to deal with that, but they're also trying to uncover, you know, Valentine's intentions, what his next point of action is going to be, who he is going to harm to kind of get what he wants, get the power that he wants. In the first book, you know, he was getting the Immortal Cup to try and create more shadow hunters, which shadow hunters, their job is to protect the human world and the shadow hunter world from demons, but also fight Valentine and fight his intentions and his kind of move for power. So in this one, he has to take the blood from every type of downworlder to resurrect this type of sword that was an angelic sword, but he actually wants to use it to control demons, which is kind of contradictory to his, you know, original stance on demons, and that's like a whole nother thing. But basically it gets even more action-packed. All these books are very action-packed. It gets more gruesome. So this one is just kind of that weird transitionary period where Clary is finally starting to become a shadow hunter, but she's not really one yet because she hasn't been in that world till now. And also her weird relationship with Jace and her relationship with Simon and everyone's relationship with each other. It's just, it's so much to keep track of. But this again is also a good book. I would still recommend it. It's just kind of a lot. So if you are interested in getting into something that is going to wreck you, pick this up. All right, and we are gonna steadily move on to the next one, which is City of Glass, the third book in the Mortal Instruments series. This is the one that I stopped reading the Mortal Instruments series just because it was like, by the end of it, it's real gruesome. It was really intense. There was some heartbreaking deaths once again, just a lot of death. There's like an entire war that happens in this one between downworlders, shadow hunters against, once again, Valentine. There's betrayal, there is romance, there is friendship, there is kidnapping once again, basically. You finally get to see the shadow hunter world and you actually get to travel with Clary to Alicante. That is how I'm going to say it. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it properly. It is the City of Glass. It was just very overwhelming to read, honestly. It was very intense, but I still really liked it. So I have this like love-hate relationship with it because it's so frustrating to read these books, but they're also really good. And I just want to know what happens next, but I also want to know that everyone's okay, but then like not everyone's okay, and then like I'm just like super overwhelmed, and it's just this whole thing, but I still really like it. I'm all over the place. So just reader be warned, you're in for a scare. I'm sorry. This one is still really good. It is freaking intense. Alright, so let's get into the next book that I picked up after City of Glass because I wanted something a little more chill and just more of like a comfort read. I didn't want something super intense to read at that point in time. So I went and I picked up the first Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I've had these copies since forever. And I just wanted to start reading them. I wanted to kind of see like what I would think in comparison to the movies that I know so well and I've watched so many times. I actually really like this one. I feel like this one is really true to, like, the movie was true to it. Some of the lines were exactly the same, some of the descriptions were exactly the same. Like one of my favorite scenes, the beginning scene where Hagrid is flying down in the motorcycle, that's the same. I did write like a whole entry about it. I just kind of said like it was a nice simple introduction to the world and just like some random like little, it's like more nitpicky like things that I noticed that were very slightly different. Like the harp in the movie was actually a flute in the book to soothe Fluffy with music. And then actually the day that Harry was dropped off, all over the world, I guess, wizards were actually celebrating, you know, the death of Lord Voldemort. I like that in these, like, you get even more of an insight into how the Dursleys really are. And this one, like the very first chapter is just like going about Vernon's very normal day of going to work and seeing his family and all this stuff, and then that night Harry is dropped off. But during the day, he and other muggles notice that there's these like weirdly dressed people in the streets, and they're wearing these very, you know, kind of gaudy outfits with robes and random colors and all this stuff, and they're talking in hushed tones, and it's like kind of weird because they live in such a boring place. And then that day, actually on the news, which they don't tell you in the movie obviously, but I guess they were shooting stars into the sky, and there was a whole flock of owls, and people were super confused. So I liked the details of it. I like getting to get more world building than in the movie. So I liked getting more of the backstory. I thought it was very cute. So that is my general opinion on this first one. This one. I'm one of those people that does agree that Chamber of Secrets is probably the best Harry Potter movie, and maybe that's just my opinion. My boyfriend and I think it is, but this one again was pretty true. Like the movie was pretty true to the book. I mean, obviously there was some stuff that was just like pretty different. Like there's this whole entire chapter dedicated to Harry, Ron, and Hermione going to Nearly Headless Nick's death day party to celebrate the day that he died. And it's like in the dungeon, and the food is all rotten and it smells, and then the musicians are playing chainsaws, or it's like a handsaw. It's just like, it's like weird. It's so funny because again, it's just that world building that I wanted that I didn't know I needed, you know? Like it's just like more insight into these characters that maybe don't get as much of a spotlight. And it's mentioned like in the later books, like they talk about it. Like it's just like a weird thing that they went and did. I thought it was funny. Is it super important to the movie? No, it's not, but I still liked it and I thought it was funny. So I also very much like this one. We're on to the Prisoner of Azkaban. I wrote a literal entire page about this. These are notes that I took from my phone and just kind of like put in here. Meeting Crookshanks apparently was hilarious in this. I said Hermione is literally me. I don't know what that was in reference to exactly, but I honestly feel it. There's just more detail and more description to people's backstories, especially Sirius Black's, which I always wanted to know more. You find out why he turns into a dog, but I was always confused. I was like, okay, I get it, like Lupin's a werewolf, but why is Sirius a dog? And then you find out that it's part of also why Wormtail's a rat. And then you find out that James Potter was also an animal. It didn't say what he was though, which I don't know why it didn't. And then they were also the ones that wrote the Marauder's Map. So I'm very appreciative of the just more details. That's all I wanted, and that's what I got. I'm excited to keep going. All right, and to end this video on a little bit of a lighter note, I mean, I guess this the origin story of this character isn't necessarily very light, but just something that is like cute, was very like easy to kind of flip through. This is actually my work read, so like every time I'm at my lunch, I read a little bit of this. It's just very quick and easy to read, and I don't actually have a lot of experience reading mangas before, so this is kind of my introduction to it. And honestly, it just took me a minute to kind of just like get used to the format. I actually am on season 3 of the show. I haven't even said what it is yet, but it's Fruits Basket. It's just such a cool story, and it's beautiful, and the characters are just really genuine, and it's just a very cool concept. Also, this is the first one in the collector's edition, so there are 12 collector's editions. There's actually 23 of these mangas originally, and then they condensed them into these collector's editions. So this story is about Toru Honda, which is this lovely person here. And then this is her mom on the back. Like I said, she does kind of have a tragic origin story. Her father died when she was very young, and then recently she lost her mom. I think it's like about a year before the story starts, but she lost her mom in a car accident, and her only family left really is her grandfather, who at that point in time can't have her living with him just for like a couple months, so she is kind of forced to go try and find, you know, a friend to stay with or something like that. But she actually decides instead to be very independent and doesn't want to burden anyone, so she chooses to live in a tent outside. And incidentally, she ends up pitching her tent on the land of the Somas. So the Soma family is a family that is possessed by the Chinese zodiac. So there are 12 zodiac members. There are all these different animals, and it's very, very interesting. But essentially, she, you know, is living on their land, and then they stumble upon her, and then they realize that 2 of the people living in the house on that specific part of land also go to school with her. So there's Yuki Soma, and then there's Kyo, and then there's also Shigure. Shigure is basically the guardian of them. He's the oldest out of all of them, and he is a novelist, so he basically stays at home most of the time, and he's just there to make sure that they go to school. And they actually invite her to live with them as long as she keeps their secret. So she finds out that if they are touched by the opposite sex, they turn into the animal that they are from the Chinese zodiac. So it is a very, very big deal that she is kind of integrated into their family. It can be dangerous, but for the most part, at least within the first couple, it is very, very sweet. You get to see all of these characters blossom in different ways. There's a lot of love, there's a lot of friendship, there's even a little bit of romance. It's very slight, just because everyone's getting used to each other. But I absolutely love this series. I love the characters, I love everything about it. It's absolutely adorable. And it's just like the fact that they turn these cute little animals is so cool. So yeah, again, like I said, this is my work read. It's something that's very easy to flip through, but is also like amazing art. Like when Kagura turns into the boar. She looks really sad in that. But yes, I do also very highly recommend this manga series. I almost dropped it. It's very fun to read. It's very cute. If you love animals, you'll love like all the animal drawings, and also like the art is just really cool and really good. That is Fruits Basket, and I hope you do give it a try. All right, I think we are done, finally. As you can see, my little candle has gone out. That is how long I have been filming, apparently. I hope this video isn't too long. I hope it's not too incoherent or rambly. But if you like this video, make sure to like. If you want to see more videos, make sure to subscribe. Also to follow my Instagram. I also, like I said, I have a lot of different hobbies. So I make art pieces, and I make jewelry, and I paint, and I do like all this other random stuff, but I also read, so I'll do reading updates and take pretty pictures of nature. I don't know. I just have a lot of interests. I'm kind of all over the place. But if you want to see any of that, and if you want to see updates on future videos, if you think somebody else would be interested in any of these books that I was talking about, make sure to share it. And I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. I hope that this was a fun video to watch / listen to. I hope maybe you got some more inspiration for reading, or at least maybe you'll find a new favorite author or a new favorite series or world to delve into, as I am one to do and enjoy doing. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon, hopefully. Bye!